Hey everyone, how's it going? Matthew Bailey here, and welcome to my list for the top 10 best movies of 2016 that I saw that I think were the best. And as I said, there's at least 18 to 19 films on this list, just like there were for all the other lists that I've done so far. And I have 10 best films out of all 19 on the list that I thought were pretty good. And like I said, if you want to, you can leave me your list in the description below. Or not description below. You can leave your list in the comment section down below. But without further ado, let's get into my picks for the top 10 best 2016 movies that I saw in my opinion. Number 10. So for number 10, I honestly have to go with XMen Apocalypse. Yeah, I thought this was an okay movie. I mean, I know there's been some stories that a lot of people didn't like the movie, but honestly, I thought it was okay. I mean, the story in it about the first ever mutant whatever was pretty interesting, but I honestly feel like there's a lot of other movies that did better than this. But the thing I really liked about this movie though is mostly just the little bit parts of the story about how the first mutant rallies up a team to help him remake the world in his image, and that was the only real thing I liked about this movie. But for number 10, I'm going to have to go with XMen Apocalypse. Number 9. So, for number 9, I gotta say, this movie definitely entertained me a lot, and that was Sing. Yeah, the movie Sing, which is sort of an animated movie, obviously, but all I can say is that it was definitely entertaining to watch. I mean, it was basically this koala who put on a talent show for people who were singing, and he was trying to raise money so that he could pay off the loan to his building. And I gotta say, it was so exciting to see these little animals who had talent, and I mean, which also teaches us an important lesson. Like, if you have skills that you want to show to the world, don't be too shy to show them to the world. And I mean, you think you're special, which is great, and if you find somewhere where you can show your skills off to the world, then by all means try it out. But yeah, this is what Sing basically taught us, and I gotta say, it was a pretty good movie. So for number 9, I'm gonna have to go with Sing. Number 8. So for number 8, I gotta say this movie in 2016 definitely surprised me when I found out it was by the same company as some other movies, and that was Kubo and the Two Strings. Yeah, the story in this movie was incredible. I mean, it was sort of the same as some of the stories in all these other movies that were made by the same company of Lego. Like, for example, Coraline, Paranorman, and The Box Trolls. So all 3 of those movies were made by the same people, and they each had a similar story to tell. And as for Kubo and the Two Strings, I mean, I really admired the story in this film about how a kid lost his mother and father, and he had to find his father's armor, and along the way his monkey toy came to life, and it turns out that the spirit of his mother was put in the monkey to help him survive, and this beetle turned out to be his father, even though the monkey originally didn't like him until she found out. And I gotta say, it is amazing how this story went. And so for number 8, I'm gonna have to go with Kubo and the Two Strings. Number 7. So for number 7, I gotta say, I thought this movie was so good. I'm hoping they're gonna continue to make another movie, but for number 7, I'm gonna have to go with Kung Fu Panda 3. Yeah, this movie was sort of amazing. I mean, the fact that Po finally meets his biological father, and originally his father tried to make him come home after he realized how much danger he's in, but it turns out he couldn't stop his son from achieving his goals and responsibilities as the Dragon Warrior. And another thing that surprised me in this movie was the return of Oogway and a new supposed enemy of his known as Kai, who originally was his close friend, but he turned against him when he found out that the power of Chi can be taken and make him even more powerful, and but he didn't realize that the more he takes from others, the less he actually has. He just didn't want to listen to it. And Po helped not just his biological father, but all the surviving pandas. Then, he taught them who they were meant to be in the world. And honestly, it was a little bit of a spoiler there when I said the surviving pandas, because he thought they were all gone by the end of Kung Fu Panda 2. But the reason why I'm hoping that they make a 4th movie of Kung Fu Panda is there's a little bit of story that hasn't been told yet that I feel like could get made into another movie. Like in the TV show Legends of Awesomeness, I mean, we find out that Tai Lung apparently had a nephew and whatever, and that little cub could possibly come into the 4th movie. Or you got and I also know that there's been a little bit of a romance going on between Po and Tigress. Now I'm not saying it's true. I mean, I feel like there was a little bit of crazy stuff going on between the two, especially between Kung Fu Panda 2 and Kung Fu Panda 3. So, and it's pretty crazy how they might make a 4th movie, but especially now that Po is an actual teacher of Chi, and he's also the Dragon Warrior. It's going to be interesting to see how he handles the 4th movie, if they ever make it. But for number 7, I'm going to have to go with Kung Fu Panda 3. Number 6. So for number 6, now even though the sequel to this was on my list of worst films of last year in 2018, number 6 for the best of 2016, I'm going to have to go with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Yeah, I gotta say, this movie of the Fantastic Beasts movies so far was really exciting to see. I mean, we finally get to see what happened before the events of Harry Potter and how the Dark Lord tried to come into power. Because before him, there was Gellert Grindelwald, and he was disguising himself and infiltrating the Ministry of Magic in the American institution. And I gotta say, this is the first time we get introduced to Newt Scamander, who I honestly did not know about this until recently. He did have a little bit of a cameo, at least his name did, in Harry Potter 3, The Prisoner of Azkaban. When they first opened the Marauders map for Harry, and it showed Newt Scamander near Dumbledore's office, meaning at first I didn't know if that was important, but now I know he's an important character that helped the Harry Potter franchise came to be. And honestly, the fact that Gellert Grindelwald was the first ever dark wizard in the world, I thought he was the one who started the first Wizarding War, but it turns out the first Wizarding War actually didn't take place until after 1945, which is when the 5th Fantastic Beasts film is supposed to take place. And that's 2 years after Tom Riddle opened the Chamber of Secrets. So, it would be interesting to see how they interpret the 3rd, 4th, and 5th movies. But, anyways, number 6, I'm going to have to go with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Now we're getting into the top 5. So, for number 5, I'm going to have to go with Doctor Strange. That's right. Number 5, I have Doctor Strange because this is the next movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that was after Captain America: Civil War, and I gotta say, this is also the first time we get introduced to the Time Stone in the MCU. I mean, before Doctor Strange was released, we only got introduced to the Reality Stone, the red one, the Power Stone, which was purple, the Mind Stone, yellow, and the Space Stone, which was blue. Those were the only 4 out of the 6 Infinity Stones that we got introduced to. And Doctor Strange was the one where we got introduced to the 5th Infinity Stone, the Time Stone. And like I said, there's technically 6 Infinity Stones, and the Soul Stone we never got introduced to until Avengers: Infinity War, which honestly I feel could have been introduced a lot sooner, but I'm glad they did actually introduce it before the end of Phase 3. So, I mean, they had to eventually, because they had that whole story arc ends after Avengers Endgame. So, which I am pretty excited to see. But anyway, for number 5, I'm gonna have to go with Doctor Strange. Number 4. So for number 4, like I said, this is also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I gotta say, this was amazing to see this movie, and that is Captain America: Civil War, the 3rd installment in the Captain America series. And also, the reason why I have it higher than Doctor Strange is because there was 2 characters that were introduced in this movie that weren't part of that never had solo films yet, that we got to see in future films. And I gotta say, one specific character really surprised me, and that is Spider-Man. Yep, we finally get an introduction to Spider-Man in Captain America: Civil War with that character now being within the MCU, and he was played by the great Tom Holland, who honestly I feel was a better casting choice for Spider-Man / Peter Parker, because in the comics he's a 15-year-old kid, and the other 2 actors who played Peter Parker, they were just too old and too tall to even be playing a kid like that. Specifically Andrew Garfield. I didn't really like his version of Spider-Man because he was older than Tobey Maguire, number 1, and 2, he was way too tall. And I gotta say, Tom Holland being cast as Spider-Man was a perfect choice. I mean, even though he was technically 19, 20 years old, he still looked like the right height to be playing a 15-year-old kid. And I gotta say, it was amazing how this movie did. And like I said, Spider-Man was the one of the new characters, but we also got introduced to Black Panther, another famous Marvel comic character. And like I said, I have his solo movie on my list of best films in 2018 for sure. If you go check out that video on my list of videos below, but on my channel at least. But yes, so for number 4, I'm gonna have to go with Captain America: Civil War. Number 3. So for my top 3 choices, I gotta say, this one, I was surprised when they were making this movie and how long it took to make this. But for number 3, I'm going to have to go with Finding Dory. Yes, that's it, right. It's the sequel to Finding Nemo, which got released in, I think, 2003 or 2004. I can't remember which year it was. I believe it was at least 2003. But it took 13 years to release a sequel to Finding Nemo, which, honestly, I feel like it kind of was worth the wait. I mean, it did give us a little bit of intel on how on how we first met Dory in Finding Nemo. I mean, where was her origin story? Like, how did she become friends with Marlin and Nemo? Or whatever, so well, and this movie kind of gave us a good insight on how her origin began and how she ended up in the ocean and how she bumped into Marlin and helped him find Nemo. And I gotta say, this was definitely a good sequel to a classic Pixar movie from in the early 2000s. So for number 3, I'm gonna have to go with Finding Dory. Number 2. So for number 2, I had a hard time choosing between my number 1 and 2, but for number 2, I'm gonna have to go with The Jungle Book. Yep, that's right. This is the live-action adaptation of The Jungle Book, directed by the famous Jon Favreau, who played Happy Hogan in the MCU in the Iron Man films. And I gotta say, I am so glad he was the director of this movie, because it turned out so well in live action form. And not only has he directed a live action version of The Jungle Book, but he's also the director for the live action adaptation of The Lion King, which I am interested in seeing this year, because it does get released in, I believe, somewhere near June or July. And I'm so excited to see how he interprets this movie. But for number 2, I have to go with The Jungle Book. And finally, for my number 1 best movie of 2016, I mean, this was going to make it somewhere on the list, and that is Zootopia. Yep, that's right. Zootopia is my number 1 best movie of 2016, because I kind of liked the little story that it was trying to express to us in the theaters, and that was, when it comes to animals, predators, and prey, I mean, the story was basically how they learned to coexist together and live in harmony, and they sort of did a lot of human type things in their world, like being an owner of an ice cream parlor, or I don't know, being a cop, like the famous Judy Hopps character in the movie. And I gotta say, this movie was a great movie, and I heard something about a possible sequel. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'll have to research it. But if they do make a sequel, like I said, a little bit of spoilers for this, but if they make a sequel, the one thing I would be interested in seeing in the sequel is Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde actually getting together, like getting married. I mean, I know they're technically one's a predator, one's a prey, but I feel like it would be possible, because I've seen so many weird type videos made on YouTube where they show what would happen if they did get together and have a kid. I just think it would be interesting to see that on the big screen. But so yeah, for number 1, I'm gonna have to go with Zootopia. So that's basically my list for the top 10 best 2016 films. And yeah, so like I said, keep an eye out for my video for the worst movies of 2016, which I will probably do after this. But as always, if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see all you dudes in the next video.